kāriro I tata nei. E tangi ana, kia rātou o te rā ngā mate uhu o te wā. Rātou kia rātou, tātou kia tātou, tēnā tātou. Mai ea te tipua, mai ea te tawhito, mai ea te kāhui o ngā ariki, mai ea tā whiwhi ki ngā tua. O I ka taki nā te Māori ko te Māori āhua noa ki runga ki nei taura, ki runga ki nei tauira, ki runga ki tēnei kaupapa. Kia tau te Māori ki runga ki tēnei kaupapa he tukuna no te whai ororo a tāne te waiora. Tēnei te matatau kā ke whakatū tārewa ki te rangi. Uhi wero tau mai te Māori, haumi e, hui e, tāe ke. Worship.
Kia ora, Pētara, and good afternoon, everyone. Very warm welcome to all of our staff, our councillors, our New Zealand Police, and everyone who's joined us today, and our community. Lovely to have you with us. I have leave of absence previously granted to Councillor Kerr. Any further requests for leave of absence, councillors? No, thank you. Confirmation of minutes. Minutes of the council meeting held on the Tuesday, the 10th of June 2025. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Dixon, seconded. Councillor Butto. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against? Thank you. That is carried. Now, item number 5. My mayoral update will be included in next month's council meeting, as we've just had one of those updates. Item 6 is the adoption of the annual plan 2025-2026, and welcome to Lex, who's been working on this with us. Just some opening comments from me as we navigate this very important work. Kia ora koutou katoa. Today we're here to finalise the annual plan for 2025-2026. This plan is in year 2 of our 10-year long-term plan, and it reflects both the challenges we continue to face and the progress that we have made since Cyclone Gabrielle. The proposed rates increase for this year is 15%. It is important to understand that 6% of this increase is directly related to the costs of recovering from Cyclone Gabrielle. Without that, the increase would have been closer to 9%. Cyclone Gabrielle has caused widespread damage across our district. Roads, bridges, culverts and water systems were badly affected. Families were displaced, farms flooded, and key parts of our local economy were hit hard. A total estimated cost of $1 billion. Council's share is around $230 million, with the rest funded by central government. This year's rate increase reflects Council's decision to rebuild our cyclone-damaged infrastructure over 7 to 10 years and repay our costs for over 16 years. That decision was made following extensive consultation with the community in 2024. Through that process, people told us they wanted the recovery to move ahead quickly. We did consider spreading the costs over a longer period, for example, 30 years, but that would have delayed critical rebuilds. Some communities would have remained cut off for much longer, and temporary bridges and damaged roads would have stayed at greater risk of failure in future storm events. It would also have increased the total cost in the long run. To date, a huge amount of work has been completed, and can I acknowledge the incredible work that has gone on by our team and the wider region. 10 temporary bridges were built within 6 months to reconnect isolated communities. The first permanent bridge rebuilt was completed at the Crystal Twin Culvert at Tutera in July last year. The Kereru Gorge Bridge was rebuilt and completed in April this year, and the Matapiro Bridge is completed with the official opening this Saturday, the 28th of June. Underway is the Puketapu Bridge rebuild due for completion in August. Other major rebuilds, including Dartmoor and Rissington Bridge, which are scheduled to begin construction in the second half of this year. We completed the voluntary buyout program at a cost of $91 million. Half of that by the Crown, half of that by our ratepayers. That assisted Category 3 property owners to move on with their lives. At the same time, we have essential infrastructure projects underway outside of the cyclone space, including the water infrastructure has been upgraded in Omahu, Eastbourne Street and Havelock Road. Housing developments across Hastings are progressing, enabled by the council's infrastructure projects, including the building of 39 council-owned senior housing units in Flaxmere. New affordable and social homes are being built by council housing partners and new private developments for new homes. But there's still a significant amount of work to be done, particularly in the cyclone recovery space. More permanent bridges are scheduled for construction, and repairs at major slip sites requiring engineering solutions continue across large parts of our roading network. In our urban areas, essential work includes further upgrades to 3 waters infrastructure are needed to strengthen our systems for the future. This annual plan closely follows the financial strategy agreed within the community last year. It focuses on essential infrastructure, keeps services running, and continues recovery work, while also delivering savings. Council met its savings target of $2.7 million last year and is on track to do the same again. These savings have come from reduced staffing costs, better value contracts, and reshaping parts of the capital program. This helps reduce the debt and keeps rates lower than they would otherwise have been. By sticking to our strategy, we protect Council's credit rating. That keeps the cost of borrowing down, which is especially important as we continue to invest in both recovery and growth. In the recovery space, we have been very successful in securing government emergency funding assistance for the next 4 years. And on top of that, 2 weeks ago, the government announced another $219 million of support for cyclone-affected councils. It all reinforces the need to keep the foot on the pedal and get all the cyclone recovery work substantively completed in the next 4 years. This plan is about staying on the course. It supports the recovery our community needs. It lays the groundwork for the future and keeps Hastings moving forward. The financial situation is difficult for everyone, residents and our council. We are grateful for the community's support as we work to bring council's budget back to a more stable level as quickly and as responsibly as possible. Tēnā koutou katoa. Next, Graham, I ask you now if you wish to add anything to, or the Chief Executive have any opening comments. Bring it. Thank you, Lex.
Nothing from me, Your Worship. I think it's all been said.
Okay, so I'm moving now to councillors. We have recommendations on page 10. This is for the adoption of the 2025-2026 annual plan. And as I've just outlined, the significant amount of work that has gone on and continues to go on in the future. I haven't got the number system working, so I just wish if you just, we have got a lighting system, thank you. Councillor Fowler.
Yep, I think you've said it all. I think you've said it all, Your Worship, and happy to move.
Thank you, Councillor Fowler. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Butto. Any further comments, councillors? Any questions on the adoption of the annual plan? No? I'll put that recommendation. Oh, Marcus, did you write a reply?
No, thank you, Your Worship. You've covered it really well. I think we're following the plan. That's where we've talked to our community over the last few years. We're executing that plan, and it's all about delivery at this point. I think it also speaks to the fact that simplistic debates around things like rates or rates capping make life very difficult, and especially when you're recovering from an event like this. So very pleased to see the work ongoing from our council.
Thank you, Councillor Butto. Is there any further comments? I'll put those recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against? Thank you. That's carried. Moving to item 7. This is the resolution to set the rates for 2025-2026 for the financial year. Welcome, Richard. Anything you wish to add, Richard?
No, thank you,
Thank
Your
you.
Worship. I take the report as read.
Okay, thank you. Councillors, is there any questions on this paper? Any comments? Happy to move from the chair. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Nixon?
I will, but I was also going to comment.
Okay, Councillor Nixon has seconded the motion and he wishes to make a comment. Thank you.
Just really to express some concern at the ability of our people to pay for the rates. It comes on top of a 20% increase last year and further increases in the future. There is no alternative, because if there was, I'd be suggesting amendments, so we just have to go with it. But I do want to just mention my concerns, that's all.
Thank you. That's noted. Thank you, Councillor Nixon. Any further comments? I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against? Thank you. That's carried. Moving on to the next agenda item, which is item number 8, and it's the Napier Hastings Future Development Strategy. And I will have some opening comments.
Some conflicts of interest, Your Worship.
Thank you.
I have a conflict, Your Worship.
Conflict of interest. Councillor Montepinto Hendry, she has left the room. Thank you. So just some introductory, Councillor Butto, thank you. Leave the room. Yes, thank you. Thank you. So just some introductory comments from me, and both in my capacity as the Mayor and as the Chair of the Napier Hastings Future Development Strategy. And this has been a massive journey, and I acknowledge the work in my introductory comments. The partner councils, Hastings District, Napier City and Hawke's Bay Regional, resolved to notify the Napier Hastings Future Development Strategy on the 19th of November 2024. The Future Development Strategy Joint Committee had earlier resolved to recommend the appointment of a suitably qualified independent hearings panel to assist the committee by hearing all persons, parties, who wish to submit on our draft Napier Hastings Future Development Strategy. The independent panel have convened and concluded public hearings in accordance with the formal consultation process under the Local Government Act. I'd like to take this opportunity to both thank and convey appreciation for the enormous amount of work of the FDS Joint Committee. The Joint Committee have provided input, feedback and recommendations for the Future Development Strategy over several years. Likewise, I'd also like to thank the Independent Hearings Panel for the work that they undertook reading, hearing and the deliberations on submissions. This is very complex work in a public environment of what we know competing priorities. Finally, I'd like to take this opportunity to both thank and convey our appreciation for the work our staff and consultants, Barker and Associates, in the Future Development Strategy work programs over the last 3 years. They've always been very professional and very diligent. Our councils are required by the National Policy Statement for Urban Development 2020 to prepare and make publicly available a future development strategy every 6 years, and then review our strategy regularly. It is clear from the independent panel's recommendations report and the substantial recommendation making up the technical attachments for today's agenda, the work done by our team to date has been very comprehensive, very detailed and very thorough. Impartial analysis and assessment of large quantities of information within decision frameworks is very challenging on many, many levels. The draft Future Development Strategy received a high level of submissions, which tested the robustness of the strategy and ensured that issues were carefully considered by the independent panel. The panel have been required to read all submissions, listen to all verbal evidence, and consider officers' recommendations to inform their recommendations report. The Independent Hearings Panel produced a recommendations report following the hearings. This was considered by the FDS Joint Committee, who made one amendment to the recommendations. Our job as governors today is to consider the recommendations of the FDS Joint Committee and the Independent Hearings Panel. The committee recommends the adoption of FDS, with the only point of difference being the removal of Riverbend Road. The legal advice we have received confirms that partner councils must all adopt the FDS to meet the requirements of the National Policy Statement for Urban Development. The Hawke's Bay Regional Council have resolved to recommend the future development strategy with the removal of both Riverbend Road and Middle Road sites. Napier City Council have resolved to approve the FDS as recommended in the officer's report, with 2 additional recommendations that I propose below. In accordance with Standing Orders 9.5, the Chair's recommendation, I'm adding the following 2 additional recommendations to the recommendations that you have in your report for consideration by Council. And I will ask the staff to put those up there for our consideration today, rather than me reading both H and I out. Thank you. That concludes my overview, and I'd also like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the long service and amazing work carried out by Mr. Mark Clues, who's with us today. This will be his last formal council meeting, as I understand it, and we acknowledge your many, many years, Mark. You have taken us through many, many different iterations of HPUDs and future development strategies, and also the tank process, and very, very difficult and onerous projects. So thank you for your long service to our district and our council. Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Now, Council, I open up. Did you want to, Craig and Craig, did you want to bring anything else and add anything to your report today?
I understand Mr. Scott has got some tweaks that he wishes to make to the other recommendations in his report, Madam Chair. I suggest he just explains those. Or
okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just a couple of minor amendments to ensure that the recommendations are, with the additions, are still understood and can provide the future ability to for officers to undertake the notations that could potentially with the notations that show the differences between the reports. And I guess the main one is in F, which is rather than adopts, we look at approving a final FDS. And what that means is that we basically all agree to a combined FDS, but allow the officers to put those differences in recommendations by the Regional Council into basically notations into the document and recognise that those differences are there. So it gives us an opportunity to make those rather than doing it on the fly, and then bring it back to the partner councils to endorse that final document.
Okay, so thank you for that. Now I will seek questions or direction. Councillor Butto.
Thank you, Your Worship. This has been a very long process, and to start the debate and meeting today, I'd like to move the recommendations as stated above with the inclusion of H and I. As I have mentioned to a large number of my colleagues and members of the public who have been interested, I am very reluctant to see more productive soil go into housing. However, we have a process here that has been considered by 5 expert independents. They have considered the evidence, they have considered the advice, they have seen things that I have not, and I have trusted them to make this decision. And I would feel very uncomfortable in making an arbitrary choice at the end of this process. So I'm happy to move the recommendations. And I look forward to debating any further amendments that are put forward.
Thank you, Councillor Butto. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Sholem, you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, Your Worship, thank you. I support the recommendations as moved by Councillor Butto. Like Councillor Butto, fertile growing soils remains a key area of focus, I'm sure, for all of us, particularly with the dependence for our economy. However, this has been a 3-year journey, and as a qualified RMA Commissioner with a separate hat on, it would be incredibly remiss of me to ignore the recommendations of the Commissioner panel. Having sat on many hearings myself, I know the robustness of that process, and I am satisfied with what they have put forward. I also note that inclusion of land within the FDS does not immediately assume that land will be developed. There are still subsequent processes that have to be gone through if people do want to develop the land. With that all in mind, I am satisfied to support the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Sholem. Any questions or further comments, councillors? Councillor Corwin.
Thank you, Your Worship. I too was on the joint committee and support the words that you said. There was a lot of work that went into it. It wasn't easy. There are a number of considerations. We're under a mandate to produce a future development strategy, and we have a time frame for that. Considerations were the housing requirement, highly productive land, connectivity and amenity. One thing I'm very pleased about the FDS is the inclusion of medium density, following on from Plan Change 5. But there were 2 areas that weren't unanimously agreed to. One hazards, which was Riverbend Road, and the second highly productive land, which was Middle Road. I'd be happy to support the recommendation with an amendment, if I may.
I'll come back to your amendment, but I'll take the motion on the table, the substantive motion first.
Point of order, Your Worship. Point of order, Your Worship. May I just check with Mr. Cameron as to process with handling amendments, please?
Through Madam Chair, so an amendment to a substantive motion must be in the context of the motion on the table. It can't be a direct negative. If someone wishes to move an amendment and that's seconded, the chair may receive that amendment, and then if the chair does receive a seconded amendment, then the council would deliberate on that amendment first and then return to the substantive motion.
I'll go back to the mover and the seconder to see if you consider that we take the amendment now.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think in good democratic process, I would like to hear out what the amendment is and discuss that.
I agree.
Okay, thank you. So, Councillor Corbyn will continue, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. The amendment is to exclude Middle Road, HN3A and HN3B, and Wall Road, H5B.
I'll just ask the Chief Executive, Mr. Cameron, are you, as the mover of an amendment, required to do we have a seconder, please?
More than happy to second, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dixon. And I will go back to the mover of the amendment, Councillor Corbyn, for you to explain the amendment to your colleagues. And we will be dealing with the amendment first.
Thank
So
you, Your
if you
Worship.
could just explain to the councillors your purpose and reason for your amendment.
Thank you, Your Worship. This amendment is not against growth and development, and not against the inclusion of another 750 dwellings in the FDS. It's moved to protect our highly productive land that isn't already in planning documents and instruments of the council. Council voted unanimously in November to exclude Middle Road from the FDS. that has been included again and Wall Road added to it. The principles for Wall Road are the same as the principles for Middle Road. They're both highly productive LUC2 land. Productive land is a cornerstone of our economy. It drives our economy, it drives our industry, it drives our jobs, and it drives our exports. Neither Middle Road nor Wall Road are necessary to meet the housing numbers required for the future development strategy. Exclusion will not make the strategy inoperable. There are locations on less productive land available for development, and the review of the FDS in 3 years' time will address any imbalances in the housing supply.
Councillor Corbyn. Councillor Dixon, do you wish to speak to the amendment?
Thank you, Your Worship. Originally, this council back in November excluded Middle Road unanimously, and the reasons were all very valid on why we should exclude it. On reading through the attachments, I discovered that the Independent Hearings Panel on many occasions relied on the advice of the experts and the advisors, and that's why I asked for a list of their names, who they were. Barker and Associates and a host of council officers, including those from HDC. This left me wondering the position of HDC and our reasons. Why did we go from excluding something to including something on the advice of officers and Barker and Associates? They will know that answer, but I believe we must debate it here in the chamber. Thank you.
So just a point of clarification on the question that you've just asked, and I'll just get the officers to explain that, because you missed out the Independent Hearings Panel. So Craig, can you answer that question?
I'll just make an opening comment through
Okay,
you, Worship,
thank
and
you.
I'll hand to Craig. I mean, the process is really important here. The council offered joint committee and all the work that had been done, adopted a draft for consultation. That consultation went out to the community. The community, including many landowners, put submissions forward that were then subsequently, as councillors are aware, like we do all the time with long-term plans and annual plans, were analysed by officers. Advice was given to commissioners. Commissioners heard those hearings and submissions and then did the weighing and balancing. So just from a process, the draft that was adopted was then subject to consultation with the community and a range of submissions that came in. So that is the context for why.
So I just ask Craig if you could please put up those two parts of your public consultation and submission and hearings, so people can see the process. Just to clarify Councillor Dixon's question. Thank you. Waiting for that, I'm very happy to have speakers, and we're focusing on the amendment. Speakers in for or against the amendment, please, councillors. So that's where I'm taking now, but we'll come back to just clarify that question asked by Councillor Dixon. Thank you. Councillor Nixon.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship.
For or against the amendment, please.
Well, first I have a question. Could I ask a question about the amendment? I just wondered if it was possible that the Wall Road and Middle Road be treated separately because they have a different view on the two. That's the question I've got. You can answer that in a minute. In terms of excluding Middle Road, I have a bit of experience in the land in that area because I looked after a 28-acre block of land some years ago that was planted in apple trees, which didn't grow because they struggled to get through the pan. The land was either soaking wet if it was winter or bone dry if it was summer. And I actually think that we should include particularly Middle Road in the future development plan provisions.
Nixon, so you support Havelock Road, but you don't support Wall Road. Okay, so can I just take councillors' attention, please, back to this public consultation and just to answer Councillor Dixon's queries. Craig,
Thank
could
you,
you
Your
speak to
Worship.
that, please? Thank you.
Can we move to the next slide? I guess we'll quickly cover that first slide. That was the pre-consultation. So before the draft, so all of that was done before the draft. We had a number of sites put forward, and we did a lot of one-on-one meetings, and multiple different types of consultation prior to the draft. But if we move to the next slide. Yeah, so following the draft, we had a number of submissions, 139. We had, and I'm just trying to remember the number, I think it's 9 in the middle road of the landowners itself who were supportive, all supportive of inclusion of their land within the FDS. So that was one of the considerations, that there was multiple submissions that came in requesting that middle road be included within the strategy. They also obviously presented as part of the hearings, and there were certainly submissions opposed as well in terms of the soils. Obviously no landowners within it, but there was submissions regarding versatile soils and that side of things, which would be opposed. Officers, obviously, and going back to the report, I think what's clear to point out is those were the authors of the report. We also utilised a lot of information from economists, market economics, soil. We got additional soils advice for certain bits of land. So whilst those were the authors, we, as planners do, we take in all of the information to provide that report. And I guess the second part of it is purely was a recommendations report to the independent hearings panel. They took that information as well as what was presented to them in the hearings, and they gave it up. And it was a lot of reading that they had to do, and they gave it up, all of that information, and that's what provided their final report. So whilst there is areas where they say, we have agreed and we have relied on the wording in the officer's report, that's not to say that they didn't do that additional analysis and made sure that those were, that they took everything into account to provide that recommendation that they have.
Councillor Dixon, are you comfortable with that response?
Thank you, Worship.
Thank you. Now, councillors, if I could take you back now to the amendment that is on the table, and could you speak for or against? And I'll start with Councillor Butto.
Thank you, Your Worship. Against the amendment, as I traversed in my opening remarks when I moved the substantive motion, I am a strong believer in the process. I am a strong believer that when you put in place independent hearings panels with experts, that you respect that. We haven't heard all of the evidence, and it would feel very wrong to remove a portion of land at the back end of this process. I do have huge sympathy for the amendment as proposed, and I certainly remember voting with the rest of this council unanimously to remove Middle Road from the draft FDS that went out to consultation. I think, though, now that it has run through the process, it would be highly inappropriate of me to vote to exclude it, in contrary to the expert advice we have received.
Thank you, Councillor Butto. Councillor Shodham.
Thank you, Worship. I too am speaking against the motion for many of the same reasons that Councillor Butto has just aptly outlined. We did unanimously vote to exclude so that this process could run its course. It now has. I have absolute confidence in the commissioner process. Again, being a commissioner myself, having sat on many hearings, it's a quasi-judicial role, it's non-political, it's evidence and law-based, and any recommendations received from officers are weighed up against all the other evidence and tested quite thoroughly. I think many of the officers in this room can probably attest to that. Therefore, I am speaking against the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Shodham. Other speakers, please, for and against the motion. Councillor Teo Skipworth.
Do you mean the amendment or the? Oh, sorry, I'm speaking against it, and the reason's been is it's been through the ringer. We've had the independence panel, we've had the joint committee, we've had the expert advisors, and we've had submissions. And I think, it's been through the ringer, it's been tested, and I think, I'm I'm in support of the motion.
Thank you.
Oh,
Councillor
against the motion, sorry.
Teo Skipworth. Councillor Fowler.
Yep, thank you, Worship. Similar, against for the similar reasons that have been outlined.
Councillor Fowler, other speakers, please. Other speakers, please. For or against the motion, the amendment? I will speak. As a number one supporter of looking after our fertile plains and having been the chair of the the Joint Committee, I respect wholeheartedly. I did not deliberately sit through the submissions because too many of us are too connected to what is right. And that's why we brought the independents from across New Zealand, people who know how to do this and what works and what doesn't. So if I supported this amendment, I'd be going against the direction of the independent hearings panel. So I will not support the amendment. Any other speakers? I will put the motion of the amendment.
Sorry, do I get a chance to speak again?
Yes, you do.
Yeah, thank you.
And I might need to take a break actually to pick up your point there, Councillor Nixon, about change from the amendment. So, but write a reply first and then we'll come back to your
Thank you,
change
Worship.
of the amendment.
First of all, is it the draft FDS or is it the FDS?
It is the FDS. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Elwyn. Well
Thank
spotted.
you. So we have heard from the independent hearings panel and they've made a recommendation, but it is up to us to make a decision. They haven't made the decision for us. It's up to us to make the decision. If we don't protect our highly productive land, who will? Not previous councils. There's already 130 hectares entrenched from previous councils. Not the advisors and officers who are tipping in another 65 hectares into this. And I can hear what people are going to say in 20, 30 years' time. They're saying it now, and they were saying it 30 years ago. We live in paradise. Hawke's Bay was the fruit bowl of New Zealand. Our soils were the best in the world. They drove our economy, created industry, created jobs, and created exports. Our fertile land was a gift and a treasure. The councillors weren't good kaitiaki. They agreed to build houses on it, and it was gone forever. Now, each of us will make our own decision and do what we think is right. I think it's right to protect our highly productive land, and I think it's right to exclude Middle Road and Wall Road.
Thank you, Councillor Corbyn. Now I'm going to take a couple of minute break as we work through the change to the amendment, because Councillor Nixon has said that he wants Wall Road included Havelock Road and excluded Wall Road. Is that correct, Councillor Nixon? Yes. Thank you. Okay, so we'll just take 2 minutes break. Thank you. Some advice on how we manage that amendment.
Yeah, well spoken. I'm going to support Owen on this one.
Right, if everyone can please be seated. Thank you, Councillor Nixon. We are taking the amendment that has been moved by Councillor Corbyn, seconded by Councillor Dixon. And if that fails, we will pick up on the second amendment by Councillor Nixon. So this is the amendment up above. If you could just have a look at that, please. Any questions? Everyone quite clear? I'll put that amendment. All those in favour of the amendment, show of hands. Those against the amendment, show of hands. Oh, we did have to do it again. So for the amendment, please. Against? Oh God, don't say that. Seven six, the amendment has been carried. Thank you. Right, moving on. Where are we up to? Item number 9. Item number 9, the adoption of the final Hastings District Council local alcohol policy.
Sorry, point of order.
Welcome
Your
to
Worship.
Janine Green.
Sorry, just point of order. I know we've adopted the amendment, but there's the rest of the recommendation.
Yeah. We're going to change the.
Oh, right. That was interesting.
Very interesting.
Right, we're not quite ready for you yet, Janine. Thank you. Might like to sit down for a minute, Tony. Thank you. Now, the staff are going to put up on the screen. We need to go back to item 8, and there's a matter here that wasn't carried through. So I'm asking Mr. Cameron to please explain the next part of H and I.
So through you, Madam Chair, you go back to your substantive motion, which is recommendations. Can you bring them up on the screen, Lynn? 8I, as amended by the amendment that you've just moved. I would also suggest that, as the amendment is contrary to the officers and expert advice, Council may wish to record some reasons for its decision. So the substantive motion on the table now is as was originally moved, incorporating the amendment that Council has just resolved. And I also suggest we record reasons for the amendment.
I'll just ask the Chief Executive to just outline the next part of the process.
So I think, I think importantly, it's probably useful to record the clarity of the Council's reasons for making a decision that doesn't accord with the advice of the independent hearing commissioners who have considered all of the submissions and evidence and weighed against the objectives that were set by the councils for the FDS. I think from a process point of view, being clear of the reasons for the decision that you as decision makers have made is important from a process point of view. And then secondly, H and I, which was in the substantive, is just important to resolve because it is the process for capturing the position of this council alongside other councillors for then officers to bring back FDS with the appropriate wording for adoption at a future council meeting. Yeah.
Your Worship, can I ask a question? Sorry, can I just clarify, can I just clarify requiring Councillor Corbyn
to make a comment, or you're inviting him to make a comment? Sorry.
I'm raising that I think it would be, appropriate for you as decision makers just to record explicitly the basis that, so for example, if you go to the regional council's decision yesterday, they recorded that they didn't support Middle Road and Riverbend Road explicitly because of the objectives around X, Y, and Z. So I just think for the purposes of...
So, Your Worship, just for you, Your Worship, so that, just for point of clarity again, so is that and I appreciate the requirement, or are you, is the insinuation that there is risk in regards to us, to Councillor Corbett not making a statement or making a statement, and are there any ramifications in ensuring that what he does say may be interpreted or misinterpreted? So.
It's not about interpreted or misinterpreted, it's being clear on the basis you as decision makers have made the decision that you have in terms of, clearly, as has been outlined, you've been through a process of setting objectives, putting in place a process where independent hearing commissioners examined all the evidence, heard directly all the submissions and made a set of recommendations. You're departing from those recommendations. It is simply, I think, good procedurally to record the reasons why you've made the decisions that you've made, and whether that's simply about capturing the objectives that were a stated objective in the SDS, where you've placed weight on the objectives around highly productive, the reasons for the decision that you've arrived at.
Thank you, appreciate the response.
It's a clarification. We'll just take a couple of minutes, please. We're taking 10 minutes, so there will be a break. Councillors, please help yourself to a cup of tea. 10-minute break. Thank you. If everyone could please be seated. I am going to leave item 8 lying on the table until after all the full council meeting today, including the PX. I'm very apologetic to our police team, have been waiting a long time. I'm going to now take the local alcohol policy, and I'm happy to move from the chair that this paper gets left on the table to the end of today's council meeting. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Sholem. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against? Thank you. That's carried. That item now is left lying on the table, and welcome Janine and Tony and our New Zealand police team and all our other people, Marla, who've been working very hard on the local alcohol policy. Thank you.
Your Worship, I'd like to declare a conflict with this paper.
Yes, certainly. Thank you.
So with me, please.
Thank you, councillors. Appreciate that. And would you, I know there's been a number of councillors, Councillor Apatu, Councillor Dixon and Councillor Butto, who have been working on our local alcohol policy, and I'll just ask you if you wish to make any opening comments on the process that you've been through.
Thank you, Worship. Firstly, thank you, Janine, for the way you've led this particular project for us and the full and in-depth analysis you've done. Thank you to the New Zealand Police for the input that you had during the hearings. That was very much appreciated. Can I acknowledge both my other councillors, Ana Apatu and Marcus Butto, who went through the hearings process. Prior to the hearing process, a joint committee of Napier Hastings committee had a briefing with the aim of aligning the policies between both cities. Same opening time, same closing time. That's what we tried to do. That was our aim. I was hugely disappointed when I was informed today that Napier had voted to stick with the status quo, 3 a.m. closing. We'd heard and seen overwhelming evidence that the hours needed to be reduced. And as a police officer stated, nothing good happens when alcohol is involved after midnight. It's just sometimes carnage. I believe it was absolutely irresponsible, in my opinion, putting an economic and a social activity of a few ahead of the health and safety for all. Congratulations, Janine, on our licence inspector for your detailed and comprehensive paper, including the recommendations. The recommendations align with a very clear message we got through the hearings. A reduction in opening and closing times, consistency across the various venues, and better signage. I'm happy to move option 1, Your Worship. That is what is required of a responsible council. Thank you.
You're moving those recommendations A to E.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Apatu, do you want to speak to the recommendations?
I'd love to have the opportunity to just say a few words. And to those who may think we're party poopers by adopting this amended local alcohol plan, look, throughout the process there was just such a good rigour and evidence, and I want to particularly thank Janine for your team and all your good work, Te Whatu Ora, compelling evidence, the police. So we were grounded in evidence. We heard from the community as well that we're very supportive of actually closing hours as well, making amendments. But we just need to remind ourselves why we're using this tool. This is all about reducing harm to our community. By removing or reducing access to alcohol, we're also reducing harm. There's clear evidence, and that's what this tool helps us do. The disproportionate health effects that the alcohol impacts on is our Māori Pacifica communities, young people, those with mental health issues, and the harm to unborn children, particularly for those women who don't even know they're pregnant and may drink in the early stages of their pregnancy. Look, I'm bitterly disappointed with Napier City Council as well. You know, we worked together in good faith. We heard the same things. They listened to the same evidence. And I'm so disappointed that they have been swayed by a few loud voices when there's obviously such a big need for our community. I mean, the depressing side and the urgency for us is that actually Hawke's Bay has the highest hazardous drinking rates in the country. So we've got work to do. But just to thank you all for such a good process, and I'm very happy to second the recommendations.
Thank you, councillor Apatu. Councillor Teo Skipworth.
I don't have a question, just a comment. Am I okay? I just want to thank the team for the long, informative report. As a child of a dad who was alcoholic, thank you.
Thank you, councillor Teo Skipworth. Other speakers? Moving to councillor Sholem.
Thank you, Worship. I would too like to acknowledge the work of the team here, the officers, and also the hearings panel. I apologise for being sick and being unable to attend that. However, the evidence is overwhelming. It was also really valuable to recently have a workshop where we heard from police, because my key concern was the migration of, in particular, young people. If we were to have an earlier closing time and Napier maintained their later one, my mind was set at ease by what the police had to say, which is very little migration at that time. And so therefore I support the recommendations.
Thank you, councillor Sholem. Councillor Butto.
Thank you, Your Worship. And look, it was great to go through the submissions and hear from the police, from health, from a whole wide range of people. There were very few who came in and spoke against the proposals here today. I am too very disappointed that we won't very likely have the same policy as Napier. It seems silly to have two separate regimes right next to each other, so close together, and I am still concerned about the risk of migration, but I acknowledge the police's experience is different on that one. I think should this pass, I think what would be very important over the next few years is actually measuring the difference in alcohol-related harm due to this change. You'll have an opportunity to do that with Napier having a different regime, with Hastings moving to this one. I think that was a piece of the evidence that I thought wasn't explored terribly well, was around the discrete reduction in harm we would be expecting from a reduction in operating hours. I do acknowledge it only impacts a small number of licences within the Hastings district, but thank you to the team for working through it. A huge amount of work was going into that, so thank you.
Thank you, councillor Butto. Any other speakers? Any questions, councillors? I also speak in support of the recommendations, and I was very grateful to have and hear from our New Zealand Health and also our New Zealand Police and how they manage some of the alcohol-related harm. And we have a responsibility as we represent our community to make sure that we hear from our people who work directly day in, day out with some of the harm that is caused. So thank you to our councillors who have been involved, and thank you to our staff. Councillor Jessup.
Kia ora tātou, he mihi nui ki a koutou, mo te mahi I tēnei wā, I tēnei tau. I'd just also like to tautoko the major milestone that we've actually put down, and I'm also a bit wary of how it's going to look in Napier, but the main thing is that we've addressed it here and it's much needed. So thank you all. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thank you, councillor Jessup. No further speakers, no further questions. Janine, and I hadn't given you the opportunity to say anything, but you everything's very well written in the report. So, and delighted with the lap that we have in front of us and the hard work that's gone into it. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against? Thank you. That's carried. Thank you very much, team. Well done. Every 6 years we do a local alcohol policy. It's never easy for anybody, but it's a time for us to revisit and see if what is working and what needs to be changed. So thank you for that. Moving on to item 10, we now will take the Splash Planet, and welcome to you, Tom and Bex. And first of all, I'll just ask you to give some opening comments to this paper. And great to hear that the comments of the community have come through in this paper, and we thank you for that work. So I'll just take any opening comments from you. Oh, did you have a presentation?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple of slides.
Okay, thank you.
Speak to the paper. Okay, so just a couple of slides to speak to the paper to start with. So first slide is just on the information that's considered within the paper. We've discussed, so we've looked at the economic data, for contextual information. There's information on there from a 2025 credit card study, 2021 economic impact study which looks at flow-ons through economic impacts through our expenditure and our employment. And then there's some regional tourism data. We did some work on visitation trend analysis. So this looked at the last 2 seasons, looking at the volumes of visitors at different periods in the season, also the kind of day by day and how the weather impacts our levels of visitation. The net financial impact modelling, so the recommendations, what we've looked at is how much is it going to cost minus a loss of revenues, where we've looked at periods of the current summer where we won't look to run the park through the recommendation. We did a public survey, had a really good response. There's over 1,000 responses to that survey. We've assessed the feedback and discussed it in the paper for you. And obviously that's informed from some of these recommendations. And then we've also looked at where we've got strategic alignment, so considering things like the open space, play, youth and multicultural strategies. So the recommendation in a nutshell, reduce the summer opening. So this is looking at the main change is going to a weekend only operation at the start. So that's 4 weeks of weekend only, 8 weeks of full 7-day operation bar Christmas Day, and then a following 4 weeks after that. Changes to the opening times. So this is a response to large volumes of feedback that we've been getting around being open for customers later in the day. This was tested through the survey. There was a clear preference for a 10-6 day, where we thought potentially there might be appetite for a later day, but it was a clear preference for a 10-6 day. Obviously looking at the exception to this would be within that 8 weeks of full operation. The first week we would like to cater for schools, because that's who the most impacted group through the not open during the week for the first 4 weeks. So we'd look to cater for them in the first full week of operation by running a 9:30, 5:30 day. And then finally the destination playground opportunity. That's looking to introduce, following the summer season, a reduced playground service which utilises the dry attractions for people to use at a reduced fee, obviously, as well. The recommendation structured within this paper all work within the current budget envelope for Splash Planet, so we're not looking to ask for any additional funding for these recommendations. I'd like to take questions.
Thank you very much, Tom. And Bex, did you want to add anything that's not in the paper? Thank you.
No, thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. It's open for questions. Councillor Fowler? Sorry, I haven't got your names up here, so I'm just having to do hands this afternoon.
Thank you, Worship. A question, then I'd like to add a recommendation. So the question is, there's some exclusions. Obviously, the outdoor pool, it's common sense why you wouldn't want to run that in the winter time. Many people will say, why can't we run the indoor pool? So is there a reason why we can't run the indoor pools and the go-karts as well?
Yeah, through you, Your Worship. So the indoor pools, it's the recommendation, because of the two things we were asked to look at, efficiencies and opportunities to open outside of the season. We've worked within the current budget envelope. Running the indoor pool, there's incredibly high costs to heating the pools. The cost for running heating the pool within the season is $70,000. So anybody that's got a spa pool at home will know, as soon as you hit those winter months, the costs for heating these things go through the roof. So we'd be looking at around almost $250,000 just to heat it, and we've got to staff it as well. We just wouldn't be able to drive the levels of visitation, looking at around probably around 260 visitors a day to justify keeping those open. That's just to cover your costs.
Thank you. And
So
another
councillor
question-
Fowler, you could reflect that in the recommendations if you wish, that you would wish those costs may want to be recovered by the community using that pool. That's something that you could ask for more work to be done if you wish.
Yeah, I'm not convinced. I'd like the officers for their judgment on that, because I'm just worried that, this may have happened before and the costs got out of control. So I'd just like the officers' opinions on that.
Do you want to bring some work back? Do you want us to commission some work to undertake that?
I'm happy from my point of view anyway to accept if the officers think that it's going to be too costly and it's too risky, because at the moment we're looking at a worst case of 38,000, and that may indeed worsen it. So I'm happy to leave the exclusions as they are. My fellow councillors may have different opinions on that, but I'm happy to leave it as. And I'd like to move. I think the 38,000 is acceptable as worst case scenario. I'd also like to move another recommendation. Splash has been, since I've been on the council, very topical, and I'd like to move another recommendation in terms of a report will be brought back to council to consider the long-term options for Splash Planet in early 2026. Financial implications of these can be considered as part of the next long-term plan. So I'd like that work, propose a recommendation so that work is in process.
Thank you.
So, yep.
Tom, did you want to respond? And we'll get Lynn and Caitlin to capture that extra recommendation. First of all,
Yeah, just with regards to the year-round availability of the indoor pool, there is wider work going on within the region with regards to spaces and places, and then following that will be an aquatic strategy that will look at the aquatic provision throughout the region. If that decides that there should be, Splash Planet opening the indoor pools throughout the winter is a good idea due to community need, then I think that's the appropriate time to approach that. Moving back to the go-karts as well. The go-karts, we're not saying they're not going to be available, but because of the location within the park, it says in the paper that it's not really practical to run it. It's not going to be able to, it's going to be difficult for us to just section off that part of the park. So we would look to use it for private functions where we could escort people over, so birthday parties or a corporate event or something like that. We could potentially use them. So we're not saying no, but we won't make it as part of the destination program.
Thank you.
thank you. Councillor Sholem.
Thank you, Worship. I would very much like to second the amended recommendations put forward by Councillor Fowler. Since I first began campaigning to get onto council back in 2017, the thing that kept coming up was why can't Splash be open all year round? And I'm really heartened to see the officers have done so much work to find a step towards that. And in a way that makes financial sense too. So I really want to acknowledge the work that's gone on there. I also want to take a minute to acknowledge in the report 3.31, the finding that 70% of unique card holders are visitors from outside of Hawke's Bay. That is really critical information, I think, for us to understand. And I appreciate that information being put in the report. Also, the quantum of spend that's coming about from Splash being in Hastings, in Hiratonga. So thank you for that, team.
Councillor Sholem. I'm just going to go around the room. Councillor Nixon.
It's just a comment, I don't have a question. I don't often say this, but yeah, I think this is a very good report. It does address the issue. We closed Frimley, which was a bit of a blow. I voted against that. I was wrong. And I think this does come up with a good compromise. It gives us another year to assess the level of demand. We know Splash is very much a summer attraction. Not only that, it's really a holiday attraction. And we've seen the numbers over and over again. They really crash the minute you get to school holidays back, schools back. And so I think this is the right solution. And I really do support us giving it another go for another year and seeing what it is, even before we get to Michael's recommendation, because I think we need a little bit more experience. We've had 2 out of 3 terrible summers, it would just be nice to get a more normal summer so that we can make a fresh assessment of the future of Splash, even though we should be looking at it long term as well. So I'm totally in support.
Thank you, Councillor Nixon. Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, thank you. Firstly, thanks very much for listening to us around the 10 a.m. I was really worried that if we were at 11 o'clock, sort of what was the point of opening. So I'm really pleased to see that those hours are what they are. I'm also disappointed that you've told me that my spa pool's expensive when marketing says they're $1 a day in winter, so that's an issue. When we had a workshop recently when you presented the findings, I raised an issue around when is the appropriate time or, for a full review. And I thought, Bruce, you had mentioned that it's actually next LTP. So I'm just wanting clarification based on what Councillor Fowler has requested to what is the opportunity for that type of review, and also to what level it is. Is it that you're suggesting something that's a little bit lighter than what it is that we were looking to do if it was with the LTP? So that was just my interpretation of what you said. That could be wrong. And all for, and again, like Councillor Sholem, trying to get the place or keep it open in winter months and stuff like that. And I think it's interesting with some of the research that we've had or some of the feedback relating to Havelock North and to what is available and what people can do. This is something that I think will be activated, and I also think it'll help promote when it gets to your summer months.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Councillor Dixon.
Thank you, Worship.
Sorry, there was a question to that. Yeah.
Mr. Allen. Oh, Tom. Thank you.
For you, Your Worship. Yeah. So obviously the strategic work that we mentioned earlier on with the spaces and places and the aquatics review, that timing of those will be finishing around this time next year. So we'll be looking to engage with you around the findings, and that splash panic will be considered in that work. And then we'll probably look to workshop and develop what questions you want answered for the LTP to inform, obviously the funding moving forward.
So I do have a subsequent question to that, because I do want to be clear. Are we going to get the opportunity to fully review the operations of Splash Planet, and when will that be?
X.
Yeah, through you, Worship. Absolutely. Yeah, as part of that piece of work.
And that's part of the LTP.
Can I say something?
Just confirming.
Point of order, Your Worship, that was what my recommendation was all about.
Okay, we'll get the recommendations up there. Thank you. Excellent. Thank you very much. Councillor Dixon.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Biggs and Tom, for actually listening. You've nailed a number of the points that we mentioned as we had that workshop, and that's very much appreciated. Just one question from me. Alongside the destination playground is a conference hall or conference room, used to be the old cafeteria. I can see that being used for indoor games for kids. Have you thought about that in any way, how to use that indoor space?
So that is in the paper.
Oh, sorry.
So I did read that, and the options and opportunities for the community to use that space. So thank you.
Yeah, I was thinking more about children's indoor game type things that they can, instead of playing outdoors, they can play indoors, not just for private functions.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, through you, Your Worship. So the space will, through the work, we will be looking to target it for bookings, mostly around parties. There's a space there for families trying to have food and stuff after they've used the activities in the park. If we haven't got a booking, then we would of course look to other ways of activating the park, which we may that part of the park which we may be able to do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barrow, thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to say, fully in support of the paper, I think it's wonderful. We're trying something different. It's been in the newspaper about losing money, and look, trying something else, opening it for longer, all responding to demands of the community, and I look forward to seeing what the results are.
Thank you very much, Councillor Barrow. So we have a mover and a seconder. We're going to put those recommendations up there in front of you, and I certainly support the recommendations, and this is very, very exciting to think that we could offer our community some recreational space in the off-season. Like Councillor Sholem, I'm very, very excited about this opportunity. So we have an extra recommendation C, a report will be brought back to Council to consider long-term options for Splash Planet to early 2026. Financial implications for these can be considered as part of the next long-term plan. Councillor Fowler, would you wish to have a reply?
Just that I think that would give us a level of assurance going in the future. So.
Thank you. Councillor Sholem?
Nothing further, Your Worship. Very excited.
Councillor Dixon?
I'm more than happy, Your Worship. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. All right, I have a recommendation on the table, moved and seconded by Councillor Fowler, Councillor Sholem second. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against? Thank you, that's carried. Now we will move into afternoon tea and I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. Now resume our council meeting. Moving on to item 11, please. Lagoimas, this is a request to receive under the Local Government Official Information Act, the Lagoima update.
Yeah, happy
Thank
to second
you.
your worship.
Thank you. We've got moved by Councillor Nixon, seconded by Councillor Butter. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against? Thank you. That's carried. Now we move back to item 8, please. And item 8, which is the looking at the adoption of the Napier Hastings Future Development Strategy, where we left off with the amendment. Thank you. Yes, Councillor Montepilio Hendry has left the table. And we had an amendment, and we had asked the mover of the amendment to put the reasons why those items should be excluded from the FDS. So if you could bring those up, please, Lynn. Yeah. Okay. All right. So as you all know, we are required, if there's any changes to the recommendations and of the independent hearings panel, and for the recommendation for the FDS, we have to have solid reasons for any amendment or change. So if we can just work through those. Middle Road and Wall Road are both highly productive land use capability. LUC land, productive land, together with water and climate, is a cornerstone of Hastings District's economic wealth. Neither Middle Road or Wall Road are necessary to meet the housing number required for the National Policy Statement on Urban Development. The exclusion of both sites will not make the FDS inoperable. The review of the FDS in 3 years' time will have the opportunity to address any imbalance that may become apparent. There are locations available on less productive land should more housing numbers be required. So just a question from me. Could we have some clarification, please, on the consequences of capacity, and with the exclusion of those two areas, what will the consequences be for that? Who would like to? Mr. Scott, thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've got a slide prepared. What do I click on to make? No, so very simple and very rushed put it together, but this is based on numbers that we have included within the FDS. So just to take you through the Hastings numbers as we stand, and this was what was provided in the memo to Councillor Corbyn as well. So with the recommendations that we provided, so the inclusion of, there was 3 sites, the Middle Road site, the Wall Road site, and the Portsmouth Road site. So as the recommended FDSs, there is a surplus of 420 dwellings for Hastings Greenfield sites. So I guess this is the important note. So once we remove Middle Road, we become into a deficit for the Hastings localised area. Wall Road adds to that deficit, so it's minus 220 if you remove Middle. If you remove Middle and Wall Road, it's minus 330 localised deficit. Napier has a surplus of 1425. So the key there is the overall figures and sufficiency numbers for the FDS do come up with a surplus, because obviously 1425 minus 330 still becomes a positive. Of course, what we are now relying on is those Napier sites, which include 660 at Riverbend, and 1,000 is included in the figures for Ahuru Station. So we are relying on those sites to make up the sufficiency that we are the deficit that we have in Hastings. So I guess that's the key point. That it does meet the requirements, and so that was my response, Councillor Corbyn. Yes, but these are the consequences of that.
Thank you very much. Any questions on that clarification? Councillor Sholem?
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a few, just to make sure I've got my head wrapped around this. So if we remove Middle Road and Wall Road, within Hastings we've got a deficit of 330, but we're saying that Napier's oversupply of surplus could potentially help offset that. Is that correct?
Yes, because this is a Hastings Napier urban development strategy. So we would expect our people to go and live in Napier. Is that what we're saying?
You took the words right out of my mouth. The other thing I just want clarity on, you've used some names there. I really want to understand what makes up that surplus, and is it actually credible that development could go on there? Because you've named a site there in particular, which is noted within the FDS as having quite complex issues related to it. So is it actually developable?
The answer for, I guess, both of the Riverbend and Ahuri Station sites, so both of those nature sites, is that we don't know, and additional work has to be undertaken, and that has been very clearly detailed in both the recommendations report of the Independent Hearings Panel, and Ahuri Station is further detailed within the FDS body, and the recommendations that were coming today was to further clarify that on Riverbend. But basically the answer is, the reason they're in there is because we don't know what the development capacity is, and we are saying that additional work needs to be done. Riverbend was obviously in there because past strategies have had it in there, and then Ahuri Station is treaty settlement land. It was provided for that opportunity for development potential. So yeah, that in a nutshell is, we don't know the answer. We don't know if those numbers can be realised as well, what the exact result is. All of this is a bit of future gazing, and these are the best guess numbers at this stage.
Your Worship, a follow-up if I may. Based on what I've just heard, I'm really uncomfortable with the reasons we've outlined in the recommendations, saying that removing Middle and Wall Road won't have an impact. We actually don't know that. And the whole purpose of the FDS is to make sure that we meet the requirements of the MPS UD, and I'm not confident we can do that. I just think in order for me to make any kind of decision today, and I don't know about my colleagues, I need a lot more info, and I need a lot more info about the implications as a whole of this decision. So I'd actually like to move a procedural motion that we leave this lying on the table and get the officers to give us a whole bunch more info before we make this decision.
Do I have a seconder for that procedural motion? Councillor Butto, thank you. So now we have a procedural motion, which is we seek more information, and we will leave this agenda item on the table. And so, so I'll take that, open that up for debate now.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Are we in? No, not here.
Debate on the procedural
we're in
motion.
PX, aren't we? Yeah.
Just
No, we're not.
Debate on a procedural motion.
No, I'll
Thank you. Councillor Dixon.
Thank you, Worship. The Independent Hearings Panel actually included in their report Riverbend and the site out of Manaharia. They included them. So I don't think a procedural motion to delay this is going to help us any further.
Just ask for clarification from the officer, please.
Those three, Madam Chair, the matter on the table now is a procedural motion as to whether to leave the matter lie. So Councillor's discussion and debate should be on the procedural motion.
Thank you. We came today to make a decision on this particular issue, and I hope it stays that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Other speakers on the procedural motion? Councillor Butto.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just really interested in essentially legal advice on whether or not a deficit in Hastings area undermines the viability of the FDS as a whole. And if we can't get that
You're
today
talking about the procedural
or here,
motion.
I think leaving it on the table is a fair way to do it.
Does anyone want to speak against the procedural motion? We've just heard from Councillor Dixon. Others? Councillor Corbyn.
Thank you, Your Worship. Scott has told us that the numbers actually satisfy the requirement of the National Policy Statement on Urban Development, the 1632 across both districts. I don't know what.
Just speaking on the procedural motion, whether we leave this matter on the table.
No, I'd like a decision today.
Like a decision today, thank you. Any other speakers on the procedural motion? Councillor Nixon, is that you?
Sorry, no, I want to comment on the, not on the procedural motion.
Okay, so I'm going to put the procedural motion. That is whether we continue with this debate or we leave it lying on the table and seek some more advice from both legal and officers. I'll put that motion. It's been moved by Councillor Sholem. It's been seconded by Councillor Butto. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Show of hands. Carried. Show of hands against, please. Show of hands against, please. Yep.
Against the procedural motion.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, sorry.
Sorry, we'll start that again. Those in support of the procedural motion, that is to leave this item on the table and seek some more clarification from both legal and officers, please raise your hand. Against, please. Thank you. The procedural motion is carried. End of discussion. This item will be staying on the table and we seek some more clarification from both legal and officers.
Look, I was thinking about something else.
That brings us to close of.
Could I just seek clarification? What were the numbers on that vote?
7-6.
Before I decided.
Now, that ends our formal part of our public meeting today. Thank you to any of our community who may have joined us. Before we move, we have one item to be heard and public excluded. And could I ask, please, Mr. Cameron to explain why this item, or Mr. Smith, should be in a PX? Mr. Smith, thank you.
You're a bunch of chocolates, you are.
Yeah, they've gone to my head.
You can't remember now.
Through you, Your Worship. The item concerns a land transaction. It's a public works transaction, or it would be, between the Hastings District Council and the Hawke's Bay Regional Council. There is some land valuation matters that might need to be discussed, hence the suggestion it be in PX, but I'm obviously in your hands on that.
Thank you, Councillor Butto. Seconded, Councillor Apatu.
Just second, Your Worship, if I may, yes, this was initially floated because of the concerns about the stop bank, if you remember, from the community. But
This item has been discussed, why we would put it in a public excluded, not in a public part of the agenda. If you're comfortable with that direction, you're happy to second it, Councillor Apatu?
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against? Thank you. That's carried. Thank you for those who've joined us today. Mā te wā.
She's back on a different